Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, of all the things that this House could do to endear itself to our constituents, spending billions of pounds on renovating our place of work certainly isn't going to be one of them. In these days of austerity, of tightening of belts, with the impending economic disaster of Brexit coming our way, I would bet that would be near the bottom or at the very bottom of this public's concerns. And the sums are simply eye-watering. 3.6 billion rising to 5.7 billion. And that's before all the unforeseen difficulties and additions that honourable members will certainly want to factor in. So it's no surprise whatsoever that people are making an estimation that this could come in at a cool 10 to 12 billion pounds. Like so many of these issues which fundamentally impact on my constituency, I actually asked a few of my constituents what they actually thought about these proposals. And it's no surprise, Mr. Speaker, that it wasn't seen all that favourably. Mrs MacLeod from Pitlochry, who just was as curt, said, "You must be joking." Mrs Morrison from Errol said, "In these days of food banks and austerity, I am actually sickened that they are even thinking about this." Mr MacDonald from Kinlochranach just casually inquired, "Why are you even still in that place? It's time to come home to your own Parliament in Scotland, Pete." A sentiment with which I wholeheartedly agreed and concurred. Surprisingly, I'll make a bit of progress, I'll give way in a minute. Surprisingly, no one in my less than scientific survey of a few people in Perth and North Perthshire thought there was any admirable qualities in spending billions and billions of pounds in a parliamentarian's palace. And I'm pretty certain, even if I went looking for any of them, I wouldn't find any in Perth and North Perthshire. Now, what I want to do just now is compare and contrast what's happening in this particular chamber with what's just been happening in the Scottish Parliament. In the Scottish Parliament, we're setting out our budgets where we are allocating billions of pounds to socially useful programmes which will enable our citizenry. What are we doing here? Talking about spending billions of pounds on a royal palace to accommodate members of Parliament. Nothing could distinguish the priorities of these two parliaments other than that. But, Mr. Speaker, I do accept that we have an issue. Because, because of the decades of prevarication and indecision, this is a building that is practically falling down. The failure of successive governments to face up to their responsibility and looking after this place means we have now a building that could, as people have said, face a catastrophic failure at any time. The mechanical and electrical engineering systems are already well past their use-by date, and the risk of that catastrophic failure increases exponentially every 5 years. Some of the high-voltage cables in the building are decaying, and fire is an ever-present risk, only compounded by how easily any fire would spread. And most worrying, and we've heard that from the Deputy Leader and the Leader of the House, there is a substantial amount of asbestos in this building. Mice and vermin are a common feature, and I've heard that some staff even have names for the mice that they frequently acquaint on a daily basis. It's not a robin we need in this house, it's a flipping big eagle to pick up some of the huge mice that kick about this place. This Palace of Westminster is simply falling down. Now, the most important feature that we have to consider, and our responsibility, is for the staff who work in this place. This is a workplace where thousands and thousands of people do the place of work, and we are putting them at significant risk by staying in here. Yes, I'll give it to the honourable member.
I sympathise with some of his argument, but it's simply untrue to say this building is falling down. It's not falling down. There is work that needs to be done, not least to protect staff, to give them a proper place to work in that is, and for the public, decent disabled access. But can I just say to him about the money? If we simply let motion 1 or 2 go through, we will be committing more money than if we vote for the amendment in the name of the Chair of the Public Accounts Committee. That's what I fear.
See, Mr. Speaker, I have a very elegant solution for the difficulties and travails of this House, and that is to consider to make this beautiful building a tourist attraction for people from all around the world. There is immense development opportunities in this UNESCO heritage building, and let's design and create a a parliament for the 21st century, one that would be useful for 21st century parliamentarians, not try and shoehorn all this activity into a mock Gothic Victorian tourist attraction. So that is what the honourable member should be supporting this evening, not all these billions of pounds being spent on some parliamentarian's palace. No, I won't, because I want to make some progress. It's a workplace where putting people at risk. We have a duty of care to these staff and to their well-being and to their safety. It is very disappointing, therefore, that this motion once again seeks to place any future works into touch and delay the decision. The simple fact is that this should have been decided a decade ago, not kicked into touch for another Parliament to deal with. The whole story of resolving our difficulties in this House is littered with prevarication and indecision. And we will not be supporting any measure that leaves our staff here for a minute longer than is absolutely necessary. We are not prepared to have them continued to be put at risk. Now, Mr. Speaker, I suppose it won't come as any great surprise to you or any other honourable members in this House that, as a Scottish National Party member, I possibly don't share the same dewy-eye affection and nostalgia as some of the honourable members over here when it comes to this particular House. I love this building. I think it's a fantastic building. It is, as has been said, one of the truly iconic buildings of the world, and it is a real pleasure and privilege to see this place as you walk down to here. But I have to concede that I could probably just about discharge my responsibilities as a Member of Parliament from somewhere else. I think I would just about manage to do that. And when I think about the distant date when all this just about may be completed, I, along with all my Scottish colleagues, will be well gone from this place, because we will be sitting in our own independent Parliament in Scotland considering the issues that all normal states happen to do. And probably when thinking about when this is all concluded, the first colony in Mars will be thinking about their own independence.
Independence for Mars.
When I look at this building, and I look at the stunning architecture and condition of it, I actually see it as some sort of sad metaphor for Brexitised Britain. Dilapidated, falling to bits around our ears, generally unloved and in need of a lot of attention and support. Doesn't that just sum up where this nation is? Mr. Speaker, yes, of course I'll give way.
Is it not the case that my honourable cousin from Scotland, that it would take a crowbar and a pint of iron brew to wrestle him from this place, that he actually loves it here?
I think the honourable gentleman is seeking to recover his composure. I certainly haven't exhorted him to resume his seat. We want to hear him continue on his feet. Mr. Pete Wishart.
I'm very grateful to you. Out to the honourable gentleman, and I will any time engage in a refreshing cup of iron brew with the honourable gentleman. But can I reassure him on his substantial point? I cannot wait to get away from this place and for my nation to take control of all its own affairs. Mr. Speaker, we of course have proposed a sensible approach to this particular issue. Yes, of course I give way.
Can he correct? It's true that there are only 22 voters in his constituency who separate him from fulfilling his wish.
Mr. Pete Wishart.
But yet again, there is a cunning plan in place, because a precedent has been set that if I, for whatever reason which I cannot foresee, was less than successful in the next election, defeated members for Perth and North Perthshire are simply given a peerage in the House of Lords. Mr. Speaker, we of course proposed a sensible approach to the current issues that are facing this House. And there is nothing wrong about considering a new build Parliament off the site. And I think it's deeply disappointing and distressing that when that was sensibly presented by my honourable friend from Adrian Shotts in the Joint Committee, it was rejected out of hand and didn't even get the time of day as a proposal. Isn't that absolutely shocking? A failure of true diligence of this House to consider all available options, rejected immediately, and it would have been the solution. Could you imagine the developers lining up to get a share of this place, a UNESCO site. Could you imagine what they could do? We're trying to shoehorn a parliament into this mock Gothic building. We need a 21st century parliament designed with all the features that we require as 21st century parliamentarians to be able to do our job, and that cannot be achieved on this site without decades of work and billions of pounds. And that brings me to my Amendment B in Motion 2, Mr. Speaker, because I think this is really, really important. For goodness sake, let's at least end the useless tradition that actively eats into our productivity as members of Parliament and install electronic voting in whatever approach we pursue. Another proposal that has gone down particularly well with my Conservative friends. We waste days of parliamentary time just stuck in packed voting lobbies waiting for that simple binary choice of yes or no. Yes, of course I will.
I'm conscious that I'm probably one of the few members that have taken part in the debate so far that was actually only elected in 2017. But one of the things that struck me when I got here was going to the Education Centre, and the bemused look on the children's faces when I explained to them that to vote in this place I've got to walk through doors, yet in the Education Centre the kids get to vote by electronic keypads.
It's okay for children.
Because my honourable friend will remember, only 2 weeks ago we wasted up to 2 hours of voting in the EU repeal, when we could have been debating, legislating or taking up issues on behalf of our constituents. Now, Web Roots Democracy have come up with a report today which said that 1 month was lost in voting in the Parliament between 2010 and 2015 at the cost of £3.5 million in honourable members' times. This nonsense has to end, and regardless of how long this is going...
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman is presupposing to the House that a month was lost in voting in the House of Commons. Do you have any information as to how much of that month was taken up by voting on SNP amendments?
That is not a matter upon which I've taxed my mind, and I don't think I am required to do so, but I've known the right honourable gentleman since we first jousted together in 1983 at a half-yearly Federation of Conservative Students conference, and I knew his puckish grin then, and I know it now. He's made his own point in his own way, and we'll leave it there. Mr. Pete Wishart.
Mr. Speaker, it's a puckish grin which I am also very familiar with, and all I want to do is assist honourable members. Help us in our campaign reclaim our time so that we can properly spend time debating and looking after the constituents. Yes, take back control is what my honourable friend said. And on that very issue, the honourable gentleman, how could I resist?
Extremely grateful to the honourable gentleman for giving way. He says that time in the division lobbies is wasted. On the Conservative benches, we find it quite useful talking to our friends and colleagues. Is that not true in the SNP?
I don't know how much of a blessing that is to the front bench, can I say, when honourable members get backstage and able to pigeonhole them. But this is what we get, Mr. Speaker, the shrieks of, oh, we need to meet up with our ministerial colleagues in the lobby. But it's a prerogative which is exclusively the right of Conservative members. I don't detect many government ministers when we spend most of our time voting with Labour, and I'm pretty damn certain that no Labour members have encountered a government minister in their lobbies over the course of these years. So it's something that the Conservative members possibly have, but it's a right that is not exclusive to the rest of us. And I'll tell them, I'll help them with this one. Right, let's have electronic voting, right? But we have to do it within the vicinity of the chamber. So we all have to come here, we get some sort of device, and the technological solution where we can press a button, which is handed out to us. We're all here. If you want to go and speak to your ministers, get the Leader of the House about a particular issue, just, hello, Leader of the House, can I have a word with you, please? None of that will be stopped. Yes, I'll give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
It's great for the Honourable Gentleman. So could he just clarify that what he's saying is that we should have individual desks?
There is a number of solutions which are designed in parliaments around. Well, now some parliaments meeting desks. What I'm suggesting is a technological solution that's handed out. We press a button, we come back and vote. We can vote on anybody's proposal that comes forward, and that time is not wasted.
Here.
Yes, I'll give way to that.
To the member for giving way, and as someone who has served in the Scottish Parliament which used electronic voting, would he agree with me that there is an issue which I saw a number of times, which was SNP MSPs who incorrectly pressed the wrong button?
Well, I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman because let me use him as an example. Sometimes he's not even there to vote on these issues because he's away refereeing in football games, earning thousands and thousands of pounds. So it's actually really good to see him in his place today, prepared to vote. Mr. Speaker, I will. Right. Last time.
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way. According to the Public Whip website, in the last full 5-year Parliament, the honourable gentleman voted 49.9% of the times in votes. Is he wanting an electronic whip so he can boost his own record without doing any real work?
I don't know quite what the honourable gentleman misses when it comes to these sort of issues. I vote for issues which are reserved here in this Parliament and our House. These people are trying to stop me from voting for English votes or English laws. So we're in a situation where there are these particular things and difficulties around the House. Mr. Speaker, oh yes, of course. But the honourable gentleman.
I thank him for giving way. Is it not also the fact that the public record doesn't record the fact there's England and Wales votes where we're excluded from in this House?
Yes. The whole trend with their evil legislation is to ensure that we don't vote on their particular issues. They're actually putting in mechanisms to stop us doing that. But I will conclude, Mr. Speaker, because I know that I think the House has very much enjoyed the alternative view when it comes to these particular issues. I want this House to both move on in where we work and how we do our work. Though I have a sneaking suspicion in my 17 years in this House that neither of these things will be delivered anytime soon.
Mr. Damien Green.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will be brief because I want to concentrate